Hello and welcome back to Mac Stories Unwind. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I am enjoying the holiday season because it means we are doing our best of episodes here on Mac Stories Unwind. Today, we are going to talk about movies and TV shows, but I understand that you have a little bit of a statement to make about movies.
Yes. And it's a failure that I need to publicly admit. At the beginning of the year, I promised that I would make an effort to become more of a movie person.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's something that I was planning at the beginning of the year. And due to a series of circumstances, life got in the way at home and, being busy with work.
Sure.
And also, so basically I failed at becoming more of a movie person, although that continues to be something that I would like to achieve. The opposite actually came true. I realized now looking back at the past year, I consumed other kinds of media more than TV. I listened to a lot more music and I played a lot more video games than in previous years.
Yes.
So I just wanted to address this because, as you will see from the show notes and by listening to this episode, only John will pick some movies. And the TV shows that I will mention are previous mentions here on Unwind. Yeah. I need to understand... I need to probably, looking ahead at 2025, allocate my entertainment time in a more diverse way, instead of just listening to music or just playing video games. Oh, I also listen to a lot more podcasts.
Oh, did you? I actually watched less, I think.
I listen to a lot more podcasts and I watch more YouTube, I would say.
Okay, yeah, I would.
But the podcasts, I know why. And that's because I started taking these walks, especially when it's sunny outside, like all around the block with my dogs, and that is perfect podcast listening time.
Sure.
And also, I have made an effort to ramp up my playback speed during this year, so I can now comfortably listen to podcasts at 1.5x. Depending on the speaker, but that also allows me to listen to a lot more episodes than before because I'm going faster. Yeah. So that's where my time has gone, and as a result, I won't have any movies. This continues to be an area of interest for me and something that needs to be better allocated in 2025. But yes, that's my statement.
I will make one suggestion to you because I know that you and Sylvia occasionally will binge a show on TV.
Oh yeah, we do.
So instead of that, just take an hour to watch a movie or 2 hours to watch a movie.
The thing is, and I think now this is probably a bigger conversation about the TV industry. I think a lot of people like us, a movie is more. Don't take this as a justification. I'm just saying how we feel. The movie feels more like a commitment. Where, like, okay, now I spent 3 hours of my time or 2.5 hours of my time, and I didn't really like this thing. Whereas with a TV episode, even if it's like on the longer side, like 40 to 45 minutes, you can tell pretty quickly, like in one episode, oh, is this thing going to be for me or not? And this is something that it's also a rule that I try to live by in all kinds of media, with video games especially. And this is something that also Chris Plant, the editor-in-chief of Polygon, says often on the Besties, another show that I listen to a lot this year. Like, we are surrounded by great art and entertainment. Just bail on the things you don't like. You don't have to watch or play or listen to something just because everybody else is doing it. If you don't like it, if it's not for you, just bail and watch a recap on YouTube or something if you want to be part of the zeitgeist and part of the conversation. Just watch it. So many video games, John, I've watched recap videos instead of playing them because I felt, that's not really for me, but I still want to kind of know the basics in case it comes up in conversation. And that's what I've done.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Well, why don't I start by suggesting a trio of movies. These are my 3 biggest movies of the year. And one thing that I have started to do with this show to make our lives easier going forward is I am keeping a list of everything we pick so we can go back and pick our year-end picks a little easier in the future. And I only started that not that long ago. So these are mostly from that time period because I had a little bit of a hard time finding all the movies that I'd watched, although I did find some in Sofa and sequel as well. But in any event, my first pick for favorite movies of 2024 is Furiosa, which is part of the Road Warrior series. It did not do particularly well at the box office, and I don't really understand why. I think that this is a particularly good installment of this series. I mean, there have been a lot of these movies stretching all the way back to the 80s at this point. But this is a sequel, or a prequel to the last one that follows Furiosa, which is the woman who in the previous episode took these women out of this fortress in the middle of the barren desert and post-apocalyptic world to try to save them and take them back to where she grew up, which was kind of this Garden of Eden type place that was she remembered from when she was a kid, because she had been abducted by the people who were in this fortress. Well, this goes back and follows her life starting as a child when she's first abducted, and what happens as she ends up going to this fortress, and what that whole situation is like. So whereas the one before this was a little bit more like one giant chase scene, which was really cool and incredibly well filmed and a lot of fun, this one has a little more story to it. It's maybe a little slower in that sense, but it still has an amazing amount of great action. And I really enjoyed the story, if you like a good post-apocalyptic story, which I do. I mean, you're going to see that's the theme that's in a lot of what I've got here in my picks this year. The second movie, Federico, is Civil War, which I talked about on the show a while back, which I waited a long time to watch this movie because it's about the United States descending into civil war, and it seemed a little bit on the nose to be watching that, and I thought it would just do nothing but make me anxious, and it does. it does induce some stress for sure, but it's actually well done. As I think some people criticized it for not being on the nose enough, because it doesn't really venture into politics. It doesn't really explain too much the motivations of the factions that are fighting in the United States in the Civil War. Instead, it focuses more on the characters and the people who are dealing with a country in turmoil, and how that plays out. And I actually liked that as a dramatic story. I thought it was really well done. I think it really I think it made real for someone like me who lives in the United States, who does not live in a war-torn country, to maybe put myself in the shoes a little better of someone who might be somewhere experiencing a civil war or other types of war. So I think that was useful and thought-provoking from that standpoint. And I thought beyond that, it's just a really great dramatic story. So I highly recommend Civil War. And then very early in the year, I watched Godzilla -1 minus color. So Godzilla -1 is really the first Godzilla movie that really grabbed me, because it had a lot of references and vibes from the movies that were created in the 50s and 60s, but brought and made modern. And what they did with Godzilla -1 minus color is they took the color out. It's black and white movie, which makes it feel even more like those old movies in a lot of ways. And I find the action sequences and the effects that are done in this movie just absolutely fantastic. I watched Godzilla versus Kong this year too. Didn't make my list. It was good, not great. I think Godzilla -1 really is great, and it really. I didn't expect for 2024 to be a year that I was into Godzilla, but I watched this movie, I watched Godzilla versus Kong, and I watched the TV series, which was quite good as well. So Godzilla -1, though, if you're interested in kind of diving into that world and maybe watching the TV show or the Kong movie too, I would start with Godzilla -1 because it's a really fantastic movie.
Very nice.
And those are my three 2024 movie picks.
Okay. Shall we move on to TV?
Let's do TV. It looks like we have overlap in only one show, so we've got a lot of ground to cover here.
And that would be the season 2 of Loot on Apple TV Plus. This is a comedy starring Maya Rudolph that we mentioned before on Wind. Season 2 picks up pretty much right after Season 1. Maya Rudolph, now a billionaire, divorced from her husband, who's like a tech mogul type figure, basically a caricature of Elon Musk in a way. And she has set up this nonprofit organization, but she doesn't really know how to run the nonprofit. And so that, the comedic aspect is there in Maya Rudolph's ability to not understand really how a nonprofit should be run, but also adapt quickly. And most like the part that I find most endearing about Loot is her understanding that trusting your colleagues and trusting the people who know how to do the job is the most important part of the job. When you're put in charge and you really don't know what to do, instead of doing what some other CEOs or some of those individuals with money do, pretending to know everything, just trusting the knowledge and the instincts of your colleagues is the most essential quality that you can have. And that, I think, makes this show really special. And then, of course, the chemistry between the different employees of the nonprofit and her. I just think she's just a great actress, and I love Maya Rudolph in SNL skits, especially this year playing Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but hey, but also like her previous role in The Good Place, like she's just so great, and so we are highly anticipating season 3 whenever that comes out, hopefully in 25.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right. So my TV picks this year, I think, reflect pretty closely the split of different streaming services that we watch at my house. I mean, it's predominantly Apple TV Plus, but we also watch a lot of Netflix and a little bit of Amazon Prime. And that's pretty much where my 6 shows fall. And I join you on Loot. I think that was a fantastic comedy. There are a lot of good comedies out this year, I think, which is a change. We haven't had good comedies for a while, I think, that really grabbed me, but that's a particularly good one. My first pick is going to be another post-apocalyptic scenario, which is Fallout, the Amazon Prime show that follows the video game. And this don't know, this really grabbed me. I really like. I've never been like a Fallout game person. I've never really played much of the games myself, but I really enjoyed the world that they built. And I know enough about Fallout to recognize, the characters and the settings and some of the things from the video game that had been incorporated into the TV show. But I think it's, I've never watched a lot on Amazon Prime. I feel like they usually have a few good things and an awful lot of junk on that streaming service, but it comes with Prime membership. So we dip into it every now and then. And I think Fallout is one of the best shows that they've done in a long time. So highly recommend Fallout.
Very nice. I want to mention, this is kind of a bit of cheating, but hey, the final episode of season 4 aired in 2024. So maybe it still counts. I'm going to mention For All Mankind season 4. This was really more of a 2023 show, but I just want to shout out to the final season 4 that aired at the very beginning of the year. I think it is my, as you will see, I have 3 Apple TV Plus shows on here. This is my favorite. Like, For All Mankind has to be one of my favorite TV dramas in years, and just the whole idea of alternate history and like an alternate timeline for the course of human evolution and space exploration is just so fascinating for me. Mm-hmm. And this season, I mean, it ends like, to call it a cliffhanger would be an understatement. And so just watch it for yourself and stick it to the very end, obviously. I am so pumped for season 5 that's potentially gonna make an even bigger jump in the future. And there's gonna be a spin-off. From the point of view of the Russians, which I'm also very fascinated by. I want to see what Apple does there. I don't think we've heard any more details in terms of like, are they shooting the show? Is it under production? Is it in post-production now? We don't have any details, I believe, at the moment. But yeah, this was the majority of the episodes aired in 2023, but the final episode that makes all the season worth it was a January release. So go check it out if you haven't. Boy, if you haven't seen For All Mankind, like what are you waiting for? Seriously.
I don't know what I'm waiting for. I quit on season 1.
Oh my God, John. this is your most toxic trait, not having seen For All Mankind.
I know. Well, you know what? Right there, that's a holiday project.
Okay.
I've got multiple seasons to catch up on. My next pick is going to be Slow Horses on Apple TV Plus. This is the London-based British drama, spy drama. Fantastic show every season. I've enjoyed. I think this was the third season. I should have checked that, but the most recent season was probably, to me, the best season. I think the season before wasn't quite as good, but Slow Horses, I think I'm gonna say this is a top 3 series for me on Apple TV Plus. It's so well done. It's about a ragtag misfit group of spies who are on the outs with the rest of British intelligence, yet somehow they find themselves mixed up in some of the biggest spy dramas in Britain every single season, and end up kind of coming out on top, making the regular professional MI5 people look bad and solving the crimes themselves. And it's just incredibly well done, lots of great characters, and they've not been afraid to kill off characters during this series, yet at the same time have been able to introduce new personalities to the mix, which have worked really well from season to season.
I will mention my third and final Apple TV Plus show of this episode, and that is the season 2 of Shrinking on
yes.
Apple TV Plus. I honestly don't know what I could say about a show where Jason Segel and Harrison Ford star in it. It's just an incredibly loving, serious, funny, like from my perspective, Shrinking is sort of the modern equivalent of Scrubs. Do you remember Scrubs?
Oh yeah, Scrubs is great.
Scrubs is great, and in fact, it was created by the same person, Bill Lawrence, the creator of Scrubs, also the creator of Shrinking, alongside Jason Segel himself and Brett Goldstein, who you may remember as Roy Kent from Ted Lasso. Now, Brett Goldstein is one of the co-creators of Shrinking, but also in season 2 stars in it. Yep. In a pretty remarkable and serious role. The series is still ongoing, so I don't want to talk about the story. I just want to say that Harrison Ford continues to be an international treasure. His performance as the more senior therapist is just impeccable. And also, I appreciate how the series is dealing with Paul, who's the character played by Harrison Ford. Paul's progressive Parkinson's disease. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing a really good job depicting that and showing how it affects you and the people around you. And also just the story, continuing from season 1. I just feel like the flaws in the main character of Jimmy, played by Jason Segel, are so relatable from the perspective of like, okay, but like when you are a therapist, when you are a person that people, other people look up to you, and then you become the person that's doing the screw ups, how do you balance, being someone that needs to help others when you yourself need to be helped? And I think that's such a powerful thing to explore. And this season does it without feeling ultra sad or like too serious or condescending against Jimmy. And I think that's an aspect, that's a quality that is rare to find, I think.
Yeah, I really like how they've fleshed out the Derek character this season as well, right?
Yes. Oh, I love Derek, man. Derek is the best.
Yeah, he is really good. All right, I'm going to move over to Netflix now and talk about Dan to Dan, which I mentioned very briefly in a recent episode. This is an anime series on Netflix, and it's very different from anything else that I'm watching, and one that I've not caught up. I'm a little bit behind because this is one that I just kind of watched by myself because Jennifer will just react with, "What in the world are you watching?" Because it's a cartoon that follows these 2 high school students, one who is into aliens, the other one who's into the occult, and how their lives collide. And in fact, there are aliens and ghosts in their town, and they're battling them for control. And it's just, it's as wild as it sounds and a lot of fun to watch. So Dan to Dan, if you like anime, or if you just like weird stories because it has a really strange vibe to it, I would highly suggest taking a look at it.
All right, let me see what I can mention now. I am going to mention The Neighborhood on CBS. Okay. This is a classic family sitcom. It's been going for 7 seasons. I mentioned it before on the show. Now the sort of the gimmick of this season is that one of the kids of Calvin and Tina had a baby. And so they are exploring the idea of, raising a baby in a black neighborhood. What does it mean? And I think this season has done, it's easy to take this series as a fun comedy about 2 white people moving into a black neighborhood and be like, oh, those are the white people. We're gonna make fun of the white people, and they do, and it's very funny, but also. I think I mentioned this before on the show. The Neighborhood, especially with the first and final seasons of final episodes of each season, this is what they usually do. Those are like the more serious episodes where they introduce usually, the themes of racism in America. What does it mean, to gentrify a neighborhood, for example? Those episodes, they usually bookend the season, and they serve as a reminder to make you think about the systemic issues that are very much still present in America and in the rest of the world, I might say, because we also see, not to the same extent, but we also see similar issues here in Italy, unfortunately. And I appreciate how this series walks that line, giving you entertainment and the laughs and, funny moments, but also making you just stop and reflect every once in a while. They had an excellent episode a few seasons back about the topic of miscarriage and grief, and I thought they handled that really, really well. And so I appreciate The Neighborhood for all the funny moments. Cedric the Entertainer stars in it as Calvin, and it's just so funny. But like at the same time, all of the actors can have that gravitas, can have that serious performance about a topic, about an idea that makes you just stop for 20 minutes and think about it. So yeah, highly recommended. Going for 7 seasons, being renewed for the 8th season, I want to say, on CBS. So it's gonna keep going. Yeah, The Neighborhood.
All right, good. Well, I've got 2 more and you've got 1, so I'll just kind of go through both of mine and then let you close things out, Federico. But my next one is The Gentleman, which is also on Netflix, and this is a Guy Ritchie story that was spun off, I guess, as a series, but kind of started life it was a movie, and now it's this TV series. But anyway, I had not watched the movie, but I did watch the series, and it's about an aristocratic family in England. And the husband dies, and the son takes over the estate. And it turns out that the dad had been growing pot underground on the estate. And the whole story is about these aristocrats who are pot farmers in England, and kind of the dealing with organized crime and what they're doing with their crops. And it ends up being kind of this weird mix between an organized crime drama sprinkled with, like a British aristocratic family, which is very kind of fish out of the water and entertaining, but also kind of brutal and violent at times too. So that's a really good series. And then my final one I'll recommend for this year as one of my favorites is Lessons in Chemistry, which was on Apple TV Plus, starring Brie Larson, who starts her career as a chemist and comes up against a lot of sexism because this is set in the late 50s, early 60s, and ends up losing her job as a chemist and has a young baby, but finds a second career as a TV host doing cooking shows where the conceit is that she's doing cooking, but in reality, she's teaching her viewers all about chemistry itself. And so it's kind of a family drama. It hits on a lot of kind of political and societal issues in America in the 50s and 60s, but it's also kind of a story about neighbors and relationships between those people and the work environments that I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It's a great series. It's well worth checking out on Apple TV Plus.
All right. My final pick is a series that we recently started watching on Netflix, and we'd really like it. It's That 90s Show. And that is sort of the reboot of the old series that used to air, at least in Italy, on MTV. And that was called That 70s Show. Now, a huge asterisk here. That 70s Show today is kind of a problematic series because of circumstances surrounding, I believe, one of the lead actors that is now in prison. And that is not even pretty much. That is absolutely, definitely an ugly story. I do not remember the details of Netflix greenlighting this series. Obviously, everybody has pretty much, obviously condemned and, walked away from supporting that person that I don't even want to mention. But yeah, they did this revival, this reboot of the show a couple of years back, I want to say. And I think it's still ongoing on Netflix. They have at least 4 seasons on Netflix. Completely new cast, lots of throwbacks to the original series, but it's basically about this new generation of kids moving to this pretty small town in Wisconsin called Point Place. And it's just about these kids, these teenagers, just having fun. It's a coming of age story about these teenagers falling in love, going to school, the usual drama, all while hanging out in the basement of one of the kids' grandparents. They used to be in the original series the parents of the main character. Now they are the grandma and the grandpa of the new protagonist. So I appreciate the clean break from the past, except for the grandparents. They are still so funny. Red Foreman, the grandpa, is still so funny. But I appreciate, and obviously, like, these are not kids who live in the modern age. These are kids who live in the 90s, right? So you have all those throwbacks and references to 30 years ago, to 90s culture. So you got your grunge, your boy bands, your fashion of the time. It's before cell phones, it's before the internet. It's if you are nostalgic for the 90s, as I am, and if you're still nostalgic for that format of the original series, despite the very bad circumstances surrounding the original series, the reboot is a good chance to sort of have a clean break with the past. Start fresh, start over with the new cast, new kids, new stories to tell, new relationships, and it's easy. It's our sitcom before going to bed. Basically, it's That 90s Show and The Neighborhood. Perfect sitcoms when you just want to relax for 20 minutes and then fall asleep.
All right, that's fantastic. All right, Federico, I think we've done it for movies and TV shows for the year. We will be back next week to talk all about video games. I think Federico is going to have a hard time giving us a short list, but we'll see. We'll see. He's been busy this year, even more busy than me with video games. In any event, you can find the two of us over at macstories.net. We are on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and, of course, Mastodon. Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.